Online for Authors. I'm chatting with Lorie Kleiner Eckert about marketing. Welcome, Lorie.
Hey there, Terry. I'm so happy to be with you today. Interesting topic.
Yes, I'm excited to have you. And it is an interesting topic. It's a very difficult topic for a lot of authors, and it's one that I really like to stress. And I'll tell you my story in a minute. But before we dive into me, let's talk a little bit about you. Why are you someone who can chat with us about this whole idea of marketing?
Because I have been in this business a long time. So my first, I've got 5 books in print, and the first one came out in the mid 1990s. So I've been at it a long time, and I've been both traditionally published. I've had 2 different publishers. Pelican Publishing did my first 3 books, and then they sold to another company, don't do the kind of stuff I do. Then my 4th book was self-published, so I've got that experience. And now I'm back with a traditional publisher with Bancroft Press. So I've seen it from different angles and know that a lot of the marketing work falls squarely on the shoulders of the writer, of the author.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my books are hybrid published, and my very first book that came out, I had no idea that I was to do any marketing. I thought because I wrote a good book that it would sell. I mean, I don't know what I wasn't thinking is really what it boils down to. But on the day that the book came out, I kind of sat in front of the computer and waited to see the numbers go up. And it didn't.
Fun
And
thing
it
to
didn't.
do.
Yeah, and it didn't on day 2 or 3 or 4 either. And I started to realize, oh my gosh, I think I need to be doing something. So I started listening to some podcasts and reading articles and trying to come up with, like, what does this look like? Something, though, that I've heard from so many people that I think is a myth, and I'm going to ask you, is that, oh, I want to be published traditionally because then I will have to do no marketing. And I don't think that's a true statement.
It is not, though I will tell you that in the early days with things were really different long ago.
Right.
So it was different with Pelican, and they really didn't want me doing a lot of stuff. But Terry, they had a $400 marketing budget. Even back then, that they never quite figured out how to spend it. So I was doing a lot of public speaking at the time and selling the books in the back of the room. So that's how my book sold, and they sold well enough that Pelican published 3 books of mine. But then when I was trying to sell my newest book, High on Life, to publishers and approached Bruce Bortz, who's the owner publisher at Bancroft Press, we had a little bit of rapport because I had written some book reviews for a couple of his books. And he emailed me and said, this is a killer query letter. If you've got a good marketing plan, I'm interested. And I wrote right back and I said, oh, well, I really don't have a very good marketing plan, but I'll get one to you. And so I did. And so I took my book chapter by chapter and how we might market that. My book is 36 essays on everything from belly fat to Billy Joel. So this one could be Mother's Day. This one could be holiday gifts, and then I took him to, I listed what the topic is and what our pitch was going to be and all this kind of stuff, just story by story. And then I've had to act on it.
Right. So I think that's something that authors need to understand is, yes, there was a time in which being published with a publisher meant that you pretty much wrote the book and you were available for some in-person things and available for things, but generally you didn't have to do anything. And I think that time has passed. Unless you are a huge name, they're not going to do the marketing for you. And the huge names don't really need a lot of marketing because they're huge names and everyone knows they have a book coming out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So with all of this experience that you've had, if you had to tell authors like 3 things that they should always do when it comes to marketing, what would you recommend? Where do you start? How do people find this idea of a marketing plan when they start out where I was, which was, oh, I need to market?
Yeah. I'll tell you the truth. I don't know that I have three. The really what you have to do, and do you say niche or do you say niche? That word, that's what you
Yes.
have to find your teeniest, tiniest little niche. Who's the perfect person for your book? And in order to get there, you have to try a whole lot of things and prove to yourself that it doesn't work. We
Right.
all start out thinking our book is for everyone,
Right.
you know, and it is. I'm sure it is, but who really is going to love it? And so I have spent a lot of time going to the wrong markets,
Mhm.
and you really have, but you're not going to know that until you try. So whatever great idea wakes you up in the night that you jotted down on the side that I should take this to all the local delis who know me and have them sell it as the perfect gift for Mother's Day. That's a good idea. Give it a try. It's not going to, in my book, it didn't go far, but so you've got to try, got to kiss a lot of frogs as if
Right.
it were
Right.
dating, as if it
No.
were dating.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I'm hoping that this is really the case. So ultimately, when you do really find who your perfect market is, then you go after them. But I don't know, Terry, what if that doesn't work also? I mean, we're up against a lot. There are so many books out there,
No,
Mm,
absolutely. But when it comes to marketing, I think there are some things that you kind of have to have in place in order to go out and try all of these things.
Yeah,
For instance, if you don't have a website or some place that people can land and learn more about you, or if you don't have any social media at all,
right.
or if you don't have any way to capture like emails and try to like create a newsletter to reach out to these potential people who might want your book, you kind of put yourself at a disadvantage.
I agree, but there is, so I'm everywhere,
Yeah.
on every platform, and I have a website, and I even have an Etsy shop because when I was that motivational speaker, I illustrated my talk with quilts that have words and symbols pieced into the design, and I've always done the same thing. Tell the stories of my life, hoping you can glean life lessons from them. So I even have an Etsy shop where you can buy those motivational messages printed out on coffee mugs and t-shirts and
Right.
sweatshirts and so forth. So I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere. But what I found particularly on Etsy is that people, and on your analytics for your website, you can see this too. People come to my Etsy shop and they look at 1.43 items. They don't look at my Etsy shop.
Right. Right.
And, and the same thing with my website. The Google Analytics tells you that people looked at two things. There's 100 things, there's 1,000 things on my
Right. Right.
website.
But
So,
one thing that Google doesn't tell you is whether the same person came back 3 or 4 times. And so it might be that on day one, they came and they looked at one thing. And on day 18 days later, they went back and looked at a different thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's something that you don't know is whether or not they come back and engage again.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and I learned a whole lot when I was doing my self-published book, and I conferred with Jane Friedman as a guru on
Right.
publishing,
Right.
and I conferred with her and did everything she said, and that's how I got myself a website. And then the website guy said to me, "It's kind of like having a baby. You think you did it when the baby's born? Now
No,
you
there's
have
changes, there's things you have to keep
yeah,
up, all of that,
it'll
right?
take 18 years
Right.
before you go off to college." So that's the website master said to me. Now you have to write a blog to bring people to your website to see your homepage that has your beautiful book. And
Right.
so I started doing that, and I wrote 2 slice of life blogs a month. I'm just writing blog number 180, so it doing 24 of these a year. I've been at it for a long time. And in fact, some of those stories that were blog posts have been chosen for High on Life, and they're in there. So So that's really, I think, what people are going to find from their marketing of their book. They're really selling their next book somehow. I don't know. It's cumulative or whatever. But so I never really sold my self-published book that well. But people found me and liked my writing and paid me to write for them. And so I made money. It just wasn't selling those books necessarily.
Right.
And I make a decent amount of money on Etsy, which I never would have done, except Jane Friedman told me, oh, that'll make you unique. Nobody has no writer has an Etsy shop. So I am everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And another thing that I did to bring people to my website, I mean, you're doing a magnificent, amazing thing to have a podcast. You're out there all the time, but I started to write book reviews so that every time I publish a book review, that goes up on all my social media to come see the book review. And that was part of how I sold myself to Bruce Boards, is because I reviewed 2 of his books. Anyway, so I am an affiliate marketer on Amazon. So there are so many doors that are waiting to be open to every author, but it takes a lot of energy and you have to keep walking through those doors. And then the funniest thing, I mean, I sell maybe 4 things a month, maybe 5 things a month as an Amazon affiliate marketer. They just said to me that I am an influencer, and now they have allowed me to open a storefront. I was like, really? So I've opened a storefront.
Right. I think that's the thing is, there are too many things to do everything, because if you tried that, you would never write again. You'd be so busy doing this. Right. But you try something and you see, does it seem to be working at all? And is it something sustainable for you? I know people, for instance, I love being on podcasts. I love not only being a host, but being a guest. And I usually host 2 a week and guest 2 a week. And I love it. But there are some people who do not. And so if it's not sustainable for you, if being on a podcast sounds horrific and it's not something you want to do, well, then that's one thing that you can skip. Because you don't want to be doing something with marketing that you hate every time you sit down to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Also, nothing has to be perfect either. There's so many things you could do. And I just put I think a dozen different letters in the mail to my niche audience. And I realized, I should have written that letter a little bit differently. It's like, don't worry, it's really fine. Right. And, and it's better than so many, because at least it's all spelled right and there's punctuation, all that kind of stuff. I just had a faulty thought that I wrote in there that I need to fix for the next batch of 12 letters. So give yourself some grace, give yourself some time off, give yourself some rewards for whatever, if you do, for many, people die over the thought of being on a podcast. How do you do that?
Right. Like it's too much. It's just overwhelming to them. And my feeling is give it a try, because you might, once you've done it, realize, it's a whole lot easier than I thought. But if you've done it a few times and you still think to yourself every time, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, it's probably not for you. And if you hate it that much, it's going to show in the podcast, which means it's not going to be a good way for you to market.
Right. Well, back to that marketing thing, though, there's just so much you can do. And many of us creatives, I heard someone say that some businesses fail not because they have too few ideas, but because they have too many. And so all of us creators are, we have scads of ideas, and what to do with them all, and pursue them a little bit and see. But like I say, though, you have to start, and you're going to find that some of those steps you take are not the right steps, but that's okay. You have to rule them out. And then you are ultimately going to find what works for you and for your specific book. Now, you've got so many books out. So do they all get marketed differently?
So for me, in a way they get marketed differently. Like I know where I'm aiming is a little bit different, but really I've been marketing myself as someone who writes character-driven fiction. So if you like a strong character, and what I have found is people who like strong characters tend to be those who are in book clubs. So I really push towards people who would be in a book club. Like if you're in a book club, you will like my books. Yes, they kind of range across times and places, but book clubs do that. Very rarely do you go to a book club and all they read is World War II. Like they read this cross section of books. And I feel like that's kind of where my people are. Often book club people are women 40 and over. There are younger ones, but generally they're women whose children have gotten old enough now that they can leave them in the evening and go to a book club and want a glass of wine, and so that's different than maybe your 22-year-old or 24-year-old who has their first baby at home and can't even think about reading. So despite the fact that I feel like my books would fit with a 24-year-old, they don't have the time to read my book. So it's usually 40 and up, maybe even 50 and up, tends to be women, and it tends to be those in book clubs.
And how do you find them then? So your listeners want to know. So how did you learn how to find that market? Because you didn't just do a Google search, best book clubs in America. Well,
no, in fact,
they've given you Oprah and so forth, which fat chance.
So one of the things that I do is when I'm in person, which I love to do in-person events. So I love to go to libraries and do things like that. I even go to craft fairs and set up a booth and sell my books. Is as people come by and they say to me, oh, I'm in a book club, because it often comes up when you're sitting there. I always say, I love to talk at book clubs. I would love to come to your book club. Well, you know what a book club loves? An author to come to their book club. Right? And so now I've also started doing book clubs by Zoom. So they Zoom me in. I had one this week. I had one the week before where I was Zoomed in, one to Maryland, one to Pennsylvania. And it's because I met someone who has a book club who told their friend who lives somewhere else and said, guess what? She'll Zoom in with you. And because an author will come in, that makes them feel special. So if you're the one who has to pick your book club book for the month, and you tell them, I would like to do Peg Unhinged, and the author can Zoom in with us, well, now everyone's excited. And so it starts out small. It started out very local, just people that knew me that had book clubs, and that's how I started. But you just start building that out. And I recognize that book clubs love to have the author come in.
Well, you just gave a major marketing tip for so many of your listeners. That's great. That's great. So but I also like your emphasis on the fact that it started slow and it's now gaining momentum. That's exactly how it happens.
Yes, it doesn't. It's never a fast thing. And if it happens quickly, it's usually a fluke and then doesn't ever happen again. So like if you put something out on your social media and all of a sudden it just took off and you have this, the likelihood is the next one you put out, you'll have 3 people look at it. Like it has to build. It just has to build. It's something that I learned from a podcast that I was listening to, and it was about book marketing. Was marketing is like when you get started, it's like having your tires stuck in the sand. And, you're pushing and rocking and pushing and rocking, and the car's going nowhere. And it's just, the tire's just spinning, sand's blowing everywhere. It's going nowhere. Finally, it catches and it moves forward just a little bit. And people are pushing real hard behind it. Push, moves forward a little, push. Now it's moving forward a little more. Now it's moving forward even a little more. And that marketing is like that. That at first, it just feels like you're spinning your tires and nothing is catching hold. But eventually something does. And then once you get the car moving, now you just have to add a little bit, right? And it keeps moving because now you kind of have that thing going. So one of my other tips that I tell people is do something marketing-wise every day, even if it's small. But do something every day that checks off, I did marketing today. Because if you do a little bit every day, it eventually is enough.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, one of the stories in High on Life is about really finding success in anything,
Right, right,
even reinventing yourself. That it's one teeny, you just have to promise that you're going to do one step a day. And I always like to have an accountability log, so you write down and you're really going to do it. But you're
right.
right. I mean, it almost boggles the mind to think that you to think otherwise. You have to do something every day because it's kind of like a Facebook, something that you put up on Facebook, whether you're telling your fans that you won the Nobel Peace Prize or you're telling them that this amazing waffle for breakfast today, here's a picture. It's active for about 24 hours, maybe 36, but then it's
And then it's
over.
gone.
It's
Right.
gone. And so, what have you done today to promote the book? And then when you hit a lull, you're looking at your stats everywhere and it's like nothing's moving. Well, have I done anything recently?
And
It's like
if
you
you
gotta
have
get
done
going.
something, is there something else that you can try? So if there's a lull and you've been doing something every day, then the answer is whatever it is you're doing isn't hitting the people that you want to hit. So what's something new that I can try? And
Yeah,
then try that new thing for a while and see. I tell people all the time, I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks.
yeah, yeah. Well, you've been
Yeah.
very good at throwing spaghetti. And I guess I have too. I mean,
Yeah.
I have 5 books in print,
Right.
I have a blog that gets published in lots of places.
Right.
So
Right. So, I mean, and that's the thing is you have to kind of find like, where are you comfortable?
uh-huh.
Definitely start with where you're comfortable,
Yeah.
and
Well,
then stretch out a little
yeah, yeah,
because your readers are probably quite a bit like you. I mean, I know that for me, it's like I tend to write the kinds of books that I want to read. So therefore, those who read my books are at least somewhat like me. So if
right,
I'm comfortable doing something, I'm likely to find some of my people hanging there. So that's a good place to start.
right,
And
right.
then you can
And that's
branch out.
where I always feel I'm a baby boomer, and that's really my audience.
Right,
You know, I
right.
mean, like you said, your book could be read by someone who's 20, but they don't have time for it. Well, so same thing. I think I'm not teaching rocket science. I'm a cheerleader in life saying, life is difficult, but you can handle it, which anyone needs to hear. But my audience is really baby boomers because
Right,
that's what I am. So,
right.
and what I would like to read.
Right. And
Exactly.
like I said, so I think that's really a wonderful marketing tip for people is to recognize, start where you are,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
start where you would be.
Yeah.
For instance, I've looked at TikTok. I don't I don't watch TikTok. I don't think that most of my readers pay a whole lot of attention to TikTok. So I have a TikTok. I do throw something on there every now and then, but I don't spend a lot of time there
Yeah.
because I don't think that's where my audience is. My audience is still very securely in Facebook and occasionally on Instagram. I mean, that's where we are, right?
That's
And
it.
so that's where I put my attention because TikTok is really big among those under 30. And those
Yeah.
aren't my readers.
Yeah. Well, one of my latest things to try, though, on Facebook is to make little movies
Yes,
because,
I've been trying. Yeah.
has been so popular and it keeps getting suggested to you. So I'm trying. And they really do get a lot of views and you get new followers. So
Right. Right.
it's a win-win, but I guess I'll get really comfortable at doing that. I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, and so for me, it's like, okay, so where do I draw my lines and how like TikTok feels uncomfortable to me mostly because it's very new to me. And I feel like so much of the TikTok is like gimmicky, and I'm just not very gimmicky, but I can do videos, and
Uh,
videos work nicely on Facebook and Instagram as well, where I think my people are hiding. So
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
yeah, it's a very interesting thought. Are there any tools or apps or things that you have found helpful while trying to do your marketing? Anything that
Oh,
you use that you say, oh yeah, everyone should be looking at this?
Oh, definitely. I use Canva. Do you use
Yeah,
Canva?
I
I
use
use
Canva.
Canva
Yeah.
all the time. So all of my, if you go to loriekleinereckert.com and just scroll down that homepage, every book I've read is part of a Canva, image.
Right.
Every blog has a Canva image. Everything has a bright, colorful Canva image.
Right.
And yeah, and in the early days, you were told on Instagram that you were supposed to have a color scheme, and
Yeah.
everything was, and it's like, I'm a quilter, so maybe that's why not. I mean, I don't want color. So anything you see of mine is just an explosion of color, but it's very pretty, I think. So yeah, so I've used that's where I'm making my movies right now. It's my
It's
little
on
video
Canva.
on
Right.
Canva.
Right.
And I have created, I bet, thousands of Canva images. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And they're all
Yeah.
getting featured now on my storefront on Amazon.
Fantastic. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about an Amazon storefront. What do you sell on an Amazon storefront?
Well, I'm really new to it, so I don't fully understand it, to tell you the truth. And it's kind of, I don't know exactly how to tell people to find it, except if I give them a direct link to
Right.
click. So, I mean, if you think of any influencer who you followed and suddenly now they're selling clothing or makeup
Right.
or
Right.
housewares, they've got a storefront. So I've just put it out there on Facebook for the first time. I just my latest book review was for Theo of Golden,
I just
and
read that. Wasn't it fabulous?
wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. So
Yeah.
here I created my image saying this is book review number 500, 257 or whatever, and then at the bottom, I always put a link to Amazon to buy
Right.
that book. And if you like my writing, you might like my High on Life, link to that. And then at the bottom, because on your storefront, you can have as many different listings as you want. But one of my lists is my all-time favorite books. Another list is books that I read to or my grandchildren have enjoyed. But my third one, which is what I really think is what I'm most excited about, is wonderful gifts for readers. So, there's
Oh.
pillows and candles and
Ah,
t-shirts.
okay.
It's not hoarding if it's books,
Right.
kind of thing. So at the bottom, I made a really pretty little colorful image on Canva that said, "Great gifts for readers. Click here." And that takes you then to Amazon.
Oh.
And the interesting thing about being an affiliate marketer, well, so you have to start as an affiliate marketer, is that if someone clicks one of your links and goes to Amazon and buys anything, you earn a commission.
Right, right. I realized that because I also am an associate
Okay.
and I didn't realize that. And I was looking one day and it was like, why am I being given like, 37 cents for someone purchasing, rain boots?
Right.
And I realized that what happened is they went to Amazon through my link and then they ended up purchasing rain
Right.
boots. And I
Right.
and I thought, wow, that's crazy. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Well,
So
then pay attention to every email that Amazon sends you, because they just invited me to be to be
super.
an influencer. It's like, really? I mean, I'm hardly, I don't know who's famous. I'm not famous.
I'm not famous. I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them.
I'm not
That's
one of them.
crazy.
So pay attention to all of those deals that come. And then and then you go to YouTube and you watch videos. And that's a great idea for anyone listening. If you don't know how to use Canva, you don't know how to market
Right.
a book, how to use Facebook to market whatever, there is a YouTube video that tells you how to do it. And you can pick the
Right.
3-minute version or the 33-minute version, and there's so much to be learned there. So that's how I started learning about the storefront, because I don't know, it's a little bit confusing, but I can do it. I'm
Well,
figuring
see,
it
and
out.
I think that's another thing. So that's really another wonderful tip, Lori, is the idea that just because you don't know how to do something shouldn't be your excuse for not then trying it because it is learnable.
Oh,
4 years ago, I didn't know what marketing was. I mean, I honestly had no idea how to do it. I can now use Canva. I can use Clipchamp. I can use TextExpander. I can use Descript. I can use Vimeo. I have all of these things that I now know how to use. How did that happen? Well, I went and I downloaded it. And first, I always just play around with it. I push buttons. I see what's coming up. I see things. And then usually I go to YouTube and I'll say, explain to me how to, and up pops, 137 different videos. And I pick one of the length I know I'm willing to listen to.
Exactly.
And then later, maybe I'll go back in and say, now that I understand the basic of this, I want to understand this piece. And I'm willing to listen a little longer to make sure that I can, do this thing. And that's just how you do it. The more you do it and learn about these different apps and programs and things that are out there, I think the easier it becomes. It starts becoming a little more intuitive, where you look at it and go, oh, well, yeah, I bet if I put, there it is. That's the thing that I'm looking for.
Yeah. Well, but see, this is another really great tip that we're giving people, or I don't know, but I guess tip that you're going to be uncomfortable. You've got to learn new things.
Right.
You're going to be uncomfortable, and ultimately you're going to master it. But that was, when I first had my website, I had to start using WordPress to post things, and I had to use MailChimp to get it out to my followers and stuff like this. And it was like, you're kidding me. I can't do this. And I had copious notes that every time I posted something, I read, oh, now I can do that in my sleep.
In your sleep, right.
In my sleep. But
Absolutely.
I think it might be intimidating to some people listening that they have to learn all of this.
I think though, start with one program.
And one step at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
When in my story on, one step at a time takes you far, I say, even if you're like trying to learn the piano, if you practice 10 minutes a day or whatever, but make sure that you record yourself on day 1, because on day 7, you're going to sound so much better, but you're not going to remember what you sounded like on day 1.
Exactly.
So that's the same thing with learning all of these things that you're really going to need to learn to be successful at being a writer. Oh my
Absolutely.
God, I want to write, but I'm marketing instead today.
Right. Well, and so I think that's like the final thing we'll kind of end on is that in order to be an author, you do have to be a marketer, at least to some degree. You have to be, because otherwise your book will sit there and it will be out, and yes, you will be published, but no one will find it. And most authors I know want people to find their books. They didn't write it just for the joy of writing. They wrote it for the joy of writing, and they want other people to enjoy what they've written.
Exactly.
And so you have to market to do that.
Yeah, and we all want to be, we were talking about Theo of Golden, we all want to be Alan Levi, who writes his first book in his 70s and self-publishes it, and everyone buys it, and suddenly it's picked up, and now it, by a major publisher, and now it's on, New York Times bestseller list. We all want that, in the same way that every kid who ever played high school football wants to go on to the major leagues, and
it happens so rarely. It happens like I'm so pleased for him, yet I know that's the unicorn out there. That is the rarity, and the rest of us actually have to do things like market our books. Like, and that's the way it works.
Fun conversations on podcasts with
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lorie, if someone wanted to reach out to you and talk with you about things that you're doing for marketing or the books that you've written, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
The best way to find me is loriekleinereckert.com. And if you want to talk to me personally, or be in touch personally, it's Lorie@loriekleinereckert.com. But if you put Lorie Eckert, Lorie Kleiner Eckert into a search engine, you will find 5,000 hits that would take you to, to Facebook, to Instagram, to X, wherever.
So guys, I'll have her main places, not everywhere because I don't have that much space, but I will have her main places in the show notes. So you'll be able to just reach straight through and click and find her. And Lorie, I want to thank you so much for being with me today.
It was great. And I really do like helping people. So I hope this has been helpful. And really, anyone can contact me via the website. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.